What is happening, y'all? Welcome on back to the Elden Ring walkthrough, and to start things off in this episode, the first thing we're going to do is some catch-up here at the Roundtable Hold. So this guy right here is your basic incantation merchant. You decide that you want to dabble in faith a little bit, tell him you see the grace, and then he will open up a dialogue, and you can pick up incantations. Now this guy will leave partway through the story, so anything that looks interesting, go ahead and buy it as soon as you can.
May the golden order.
This is D. D has a pretty long quest line. You can get his armor at the end of it, but there's nothing else we really have to do with him now. This guy, we met him out in Liurnia.
They're accusing. Can you believe? Can scarcely
He is a edgy boy. There's really nothing to worry about with him. He's going to join the manor. We're also going to join the manor, but nothing else to worry about with him for the time being. Over here, if you interact with this guy, you should get... I guess he won't give it to us yet. This guy has an emote we can get. There we go. This is where Gideon will end up eventually. He will not be there for now. And there's nothing right here for now, but an NPC will show up there at a later time. This is our basic hub merchant. And what the Twin Maiden Husks do is throughout the game, we're going to find these things called bell bearings. If you kill an NPC, you'll get their bell bearings, so you can, still get access to items they might have sold. But more importantly, we're going to find bell bearings that will allow us to pick up upgrade mats. So our basic upgrade mats are sombering mats. I've not found a bell bearing anywhere in the game for the final upgrade tier, but everything else you can purchase an infinite amount of with runes. Beyond that, these are two multiplayer items. This one allows you to jump in and help somebody being invaded. This one is great if you're playing through and you want to do co-op. If you have this on and you have it active and someone invades you, this will try to summon a blue to come in and protect you. Beyond that, as you get more souls, I'd suggest picking up the Stone Sword Key. I'd also suggest picking up the Memory Stone if you're a caster. And then she has Rune Arcs, which we don't really need for now, but there's 5 here if you want them. Beyond that, basically all of the starter weapons and some other things are here as well, so just stuff to keep in mind. These are funny. If you're a host and you bring a summon in, the summon can pretend to be the host and the host can pretend to be the summon, but beyond that, we're not worried about that. So heading on over this way. Don't talk to the maiden just yet. First, we're going to go over here to the blacksmith.
You're a new fame, no matter. Lay out your own.
So ask him about Roderica. Just run through his dialogue. He's going to say that she has a talent for spirit tuning, which is what we want. I'm going to go back. We're going to talk to her.
My name isn't this a Roundtable? I never knew, although I'm still
Tell her what the blacksmith said.
I suppose I'll ask him certainly. I know I can tell.
And then go back to the blacksmith.
Back on no matter. Look up. Are you out? Boots. Absurd. I don't.
Go back over to her.
I suppose I'll ask Matt.
Then go back to him one last time.
Back already, no matter.
And okay, never mind. Looks like we didn't have to do that last run. But so he's all set. Now the next time we come here, she will be right there, right against this wall, and we'll be able to go to her to upgrade our little spirit summons, things like the wolves and whatnot. That door doesn't open. Down here, there are some... that door doesn't open. Here's the stonework key doors. One of them has a talisman that's related. I don't know. We'll have to get back to it in the prep. But basically, there's a crossbow in here that's decent. I wouldn't suggest using this right now unless you're desperate for a crossbow. And then after you open that, there's a second door that has a talisman that has some like ranged advantage type potential that we'll discuss at a later time. But for now, just ignore those. We don't need that stuff just yet. Over in here, we have a mirror. If you want to change your appearance at all, you can go right here. We can go to the base template. You can, as far as I know, I think you can change everything here with the exception of gender. I don't think you can go change your gender. But you can switch the age around. You can switch the voice, fully alter your face structure and all that, your body and all that. Make different looks. This is Fia. Go ahead and talk to her and get a free hug.
Greeting. I am great chap. Perhaps you doing so. And you, do you think it where I come from? Ah.
Now, when she hugs you, you're going to get a health debuff. but that's okay. We're not, you know, that health debuff will go away the first time you die, and in exchange, you'll get something called the Baldachian's Blessing, which will increase your poise.
What you know it is, come back to me. I will take you.
So basically, anytime you want to get that buff, you can come to her, get a hug, you'll lose some health, and you'll get a buff. Alright, and the last thing is Gideon. But she doesn't really have much dialogue for now, but go ahead and talk to him just to burn through his dialogue.
You, the house, remember you.
This room will open later. That is where we get boss weapons and spells and all that stuff. But for now, that's going to cover everything at Roundtable Hold. Now, if you've already gone and done some farming, this blacksmith can upgrade your weapons all the way. This is an excellent time to get going on that. So similar to the last episode, figure out what weapon you're going to want. I know that I'm going to want this, but I'm going to need a couple levels. I need to hit 17 dex and 18 strength. So for the time being, I'm just going to work with the Morningstar for now. And then when I hit those levels, I'm going to switch on over and upgrade that thing. And we are going to first head on out over to here. We're going to go to Fort Haight West, and we're going to clear some stuff that's over here. Now you shouldn't have an issue clearing through this stuff at this point of the game. Even though this is out west, or excuse me, out east, this is still considered Limgrave, so this is still an early area. Just, you know, be a little bit careful, don't get overwhelmed. Pumpkinhead is probably the one thing to look out for over here. Pumpkinhead starts getting closer. It might be time to go away. Trying to lure everything away. You can farm these guys for their armor if you want. While they're fighting, we're just gonna let that happen for now. We're not gonna worry about them just yet. Just let them do their thing. There's some other stuff we want to get first. So this guy is gonna throw bombs, so just run right past. And the other bomb got me before I could get the backstab. So when you do a backstab, or we'll just call it a critical animation, whether that's via backstab or via parry, while you are in that animation, you have permanent iframes. So if you're in the middle of backstabbing somebody and someone tries to drop out a giant world-ending spell, it doesn't matter. You can't take damage from it. So that's what I was trying to go for right there, was get off that backstab, which is just walking behind an enemy and then hitting R1 when you're positioned right behind them. Now, it might be a little bit tricky to get it first, like figuring out exactly how far you want to circle behind something. Finish killing these things. Remember, jumping heavy attacks are good. And since we vanquished the enemy group, we have our stuff. Now, this is going to be the hardest guy here. We're just going to circle around and backstab this guy until he's dead. Actually, we're going to bring him back up so that thing doesn't hit me with a firebomb in the middle of the fight. And there's some loot we can get up here as well. So, summon up our wolves up here. Oh no, all the wolves went down. That's very unfortunate. That's okay, we can still just circle backstab this guy. Don't let the bloody slash hit you. And you can see, all I'm really doing here is I'm holding L1 to keep my shield up, and I'm just circling around him. Now we got Ash of War Bloody Slash, an excellent Ash of War to have early on. Got the half of the medallion. That is needed to get us into a late game area. We need 2 halves. So, just grabbing that now, getting it out the way. The main reason we came over here was to get Bloody Slash, though. And then there's also a cookbook here as well. I wrote down cookbook, Bloody Slash, and then the Dectus. The smithing stone. Where is my cookbook at? Might be downstairs in the room. Check out here just to make sure. Nothing right there. Ballista guy right there. Go ahead and kill him. No more ballista. And there's my cookbook. So that's going to be it for this area. We're going to want to turn in that quest. So head to the 3rd church. That church in the Mistwood where we got our physic. I now remember it is right over here. So we're gonna head on over and just tell that dude like, hey, things are cleared. I'm gonna put on the Doggian's Blessing. I would prefer to have my health back, but we want to talk to her and do that at least once because she has a quest that's actually tied to a secret ending. Not an ending you get an additional trophy for or anything, but still a secret ending nonetheless, so it's worth getting that first hug. And you can see that buff in the top left whenever the HUD is active. I have 2 buffs right now, one which is the stamina increase buff, and the other which is the health debuff. You want to talk to this guy?
I've been waiting for you. Did you? Oh, well done. I knew it. Now, go ahead.
He gives you a nice dagger.
Right, much. What's that look? Well, under even the vulgar, which is why just you. Would you like? I see bright. Enter. Who knows? What say you? Then I knew. I shall hold this. I see. I've much.
All right, so we have burned through his dialogue. Now, his quest is pretty simple. He's going to head back to the fort. Things aren't going to work out how he wants. He's going to say to go find another lord. At that point, you can kill him, and you can get yourself a free seat. I haven't discovered if there is any more to his quest yet, but if there is, we will figure that out before we tell you to kill him. So, as I do all the prep and we run through and we test all of these lines, I'm usually recording like in cadence with that because I like to record these episodes while everything is still fresh right there in like the in recent memory. So from here, let's go. I guess we can get the cave done first. So we'll start at the Church of Ella. Now these areas have tons and tons and tons of caves, and this is where the video is gonna start taking a while. We're gonna burn our way through a lot of these caves. The first one is just straight north from the church. I think nighttime. I think we're evening. We'll warp it out soon. And there's tons of things to do on the map. So the biggest thing right now is just to. These early episodes are really just to give you an idea on the scope of the map and just how much there is to uncover and discover. Alright, let's mix our physic real fast since we're about to start actually doing content. So with the physic, like I said, this is a make your own potion. And earlier we picked up these two, which are both really nice. So this will boost our max stamina, and this is going to enhance charge attacks, which as I mentioned, charge attacks can get knockdown blows, which will then open the enemy up for a critical. So both of those are really nice early pickups. We have some we're going to get a little bit later that are much, much better. Even relatively soon we're going to get some. But for now, I'm going to keep leveling up my dexterity. And the reason for that is, you might remember I said there's a two-handed bonus. So to hit that 18 strength, we're already at that, at a 15. When we two-hand it, we'll be over that. So the priority right now is getting my dex up to 17 so that I can use my Bloodhound's Fang. We're also going to change one flask over. Now, if you're a caster build, honestly, you're just going to have to kind of feel out how many of the blue flasks you want. I think like a 4-to-3 ratio is usually pretty good. If you're a melee build, I'd suggest having at least one, and the main reason for that being that we can pop our, we want enough FP to do a summon, and then after we do our summon, which make sure you put on your lantern going down here, after you do your summon, you're going to want some FP back to use your weapon art. Now there's some wolves down here. Just beat them down. The white one is the most dangerous. The other ones are pretty basic. Get a little bit of distance here. Go up here and kind of choke point them. Ooh. So now that we're actually getting into combat, let's talk a little bit about different types of attacks and, just the variety of ways that you can take out enemies in this game. So, with weapons, do this right before the boss. This is a nice little campfire. We can see lots of stuff. So we have our light attacks. We have our heavy attacks. Heavy attacks can always be charged. That's R1 and R2. We have running attacks. So that's a running light. That's a running heavy. We also have backstep attacks. So backstep, go into a light. Backstep, go into a heavy. We have rolling attacks. So roll into a light. Roll into a heavy. And we have jumping attacks. So jump light. Jump heavy. Now these attacks may also vary depending on whether you were one-handing or two-handing your weapon, but those are your basics. So anytime you're going to use a new weapon, really get a feel for what works well. So I can see this, if I dodge back, I'm going to have a nice thrust going forward. Whereas if I dodge and I go for a heavy, that's going to do a backstep and then it's going to step into a slam. And I can see testing that I can actually charge that as well. So I could backstep and attack and then get out a charged heavy. And that's probably one of the most important things in these games, is really just kind of getting a feel for your weapon. Learning, exactly what your weapon is capable of, what it is able to do, and that'll make things a lot easier for you as you just progress through. So, anytime you cross a boss fog, usually, you're going to be able to get up a summon. And I'm just going to dodge this guy for a little bit until he starts looking at the wolves. Now, early on, your wolves aren't going to do a ton of damage. They are largely here just to distract the target. And you can see what I'm doing here is I let the wolves distract him, and then I'm going into charged heavy attacks. And 2 charged heavies opened him up for a critical, and that guy, stood no chance. And that's what's great about the wolves, is you just get them to just briefly distract a target, and then you're going to be able to get in those really beefy heavy attacks. If you're a caster, obviously you're going to be able to sit back and cast a bunch. And that's when people say this is the most approachable Souls game yet, it's great approachable Souls game for new players. I've seen a lot of people kind of upset with that. They're like, it's just as hard. And don't get me wrong, there are very hard bosses. This can easily compare to previous Souls games in terms of the difficulty, but we do have a lot of things that make it more approachable this time around. We're able to use Ashes of War, which we'll get into that in a little bit to change things up. We're able to use the Spirit Summons, which the Spirit Summons are a huge game changer. I never before in a Souls game have you been able to just summon wolves on demand that are going to distract the enemy and help you fight. So there is a lot here that can really help if you take the time to explore and get into it. So now we're going to clear out this whole area. I'm just going to walk up. That guy. Okay. This up to get a nice sword. Now, that guy is the one we need to take out. That guy has a horn. This is actually a good area just to test stuff. But so, while you're crouched, you can hold circle, and you can see we're kind of like fast walking up. We want to kill this guy. And that's the main dude for the area. Now, if that guy ends up hitting that bugle, it's going to aggro everything in the camp. Instead, we have 3 dudes that saw us, so we still got to fight our way past 3, but we don't have to fight the entire camp, which is a big difference. So, you can see we have that summon icon on the left, so same as before, we're able to pull our wolves out. Let's pop our flask. This is going to enhance our charged attacks. He's already looking at the wolves, so we can just walk up and start our backstab party. And at this point, we're just going to go through and basically kill everything here. Just really clear this out. As long as you kill that one guy first, the one that has the horn, just because that'll summon everything that's in this zone to try and fight you. And that can make things a bit tricky, you know. It's very easy to get overwhelmed when you have like 12 knights rushing at you. But especially in the late game, if you just want to test spells out, I think this is one of the better early areas for that. Because you can walk, you can get Guy to call all the troops out. And then once they all show up, you suddenly have just a little army of soldiers that you can test your spells against. So, I really like this area for that. Another early dexterity weapon, flail. I'm actually really excited to try that out on my own playthrough when I start playing Dex. You can break this with a horse, but it's a pain to get it with a... There we go. They usually just have basic gold runes, so nothing really of value there. And if you weren't following the previous videos, definitely make sure that you grab the map marker right here. We'll top off our health. We want to go down in here. And this is going to get you our very first whetstone. Very, very important item. Talk about that in just a second. Just got some more knights to beat down. We don't have to kill everything. I'm just going to because like we're already here. You can see right there, that guy blocked, was getting ready to counterattack. No, didn't matter. Wolves got him. That thing, and there should be last couple guard right on over here. So in general, when it comes to combat in games like this and any Dark Souls game, watching the enemy is going to be your best bet. You know, just paying attention to the enemy's movement and then countering after you know what they're going to do. Now, another thing I haven't talked about until now is parrying. When an enemy is going to attack, if you have a parry equipped on your shield, you can do that and knock his weapon away, and it's going to instantly open the enemy up for a critical attack. Now, parries are very strong. Don't get me wrong. Parries are absolutely devastating, especially in PvP. But it's definitely something you're going to want to practice. So if you're going to get comfortable with parries, I'd suggest starting on early knights like these who aren't going to do too much damage. In general, your small shields are going to have larger parry windows. Your medium shields, so like your medium shield, you have, we'll say like half a second to parry, and then your small shields, you have like a second to parry. So just to show exactly what I'm talking about, because these are definitely an intricate part of the Souls experience. Yeah, I was too early there. Get a delayed swing. I'm not very good at parrying myself, but The delayed swings, they're throwing me off. That was a partial. I felt like it was going to go through him, but it didn't. Yeah, it's these delayed swings on these dudes that are messing me up. I'm doing this wrong. Let me kill one of these guys. Getting a shield break on an enemy will open them up for a critical in the same way a parry would, by the way. So it's like, you know, if you want to use a great shield. There we go. Took forever to get it off, but like I said, I've never considered myself very good at parrying. But small shields do make it a lot easier. Small shields, you're going to get a lot more frames to get your parry off. So at this point, we are just getting ready to really explore. You know, we've done a little bit with the kind of early combat explanations. Grabbed a couple of key items. Let's run on over to this Grace, and from that Grace, we're going to really get started here. So I want to cover using the wet blade and scaling and all that stuff. And before we really set out into this world, that farm that we talked about back in like the starter episode, now would be a good time to do that to get some level upgrades into your weapon. But before that, let's talk about Ashes of War, because we now have access to the first whetstone. So what Ashes of War allow you to do is change the unique ability on your weapon. So right now the Morningstar has kick, but we've picked up Ground Slam, where you jump and slam your butt down. We have Storm Stomp. We have Determination, we have Sacred Blade, and then we have Poisonous Mist. Now this basically gives your weapon a special technique. So if I have, well, since I have a shield and I hit L2, it's going to parry. But if I have a shield with no skill, or I'm two-handing my weapon, or I have nothing in that hand, I'm going to do that special ability. So right now I'm doing kick. I go here instead, and I switch it up, and I go to, I mean, a really good early one is going to be Sacred Blade. I'll put that on. You'll see now, I'm going to toss out a thing of light, and now this is enchanted with Holy. So you'll also notice here that it says 263 on attack power. If I equip it and put it back, you can see it's gone down to 177. So what that's doing is it's giving me a buff that will deal Holy damage on this in addition to that ray that it shoots out. And besides that, when we select that, you can see that we can change the scaling. So if I want to keep it standard, we can see my damage is going to be 118 plus 18. What that means is the 118, that is the base damage that the weapon is getting with standard scaling. And then the plus 18 is the scaled damage. That's what I'm getting from the attribute scaling D and D and strength and dexterity. So think of it like anybody can do 118 damage with this weapon while it's standard, but the more strength and more dex you have, the more that secondary number goes up. Now if we make it sacred instead, the new baseline damage is going to be 84 physical and then 84 holy. But for attribute scaling, you can see strength goes down to E, dex goes down to E, and faith goes up to D. So here I have more damage overall, because as opposed to the 118, I'm getting 84 and 84 because it's splitting the damage, but my scaling goes down. So instead of getting a plus 18, I'm only getting 2 and then 5. Now, and this is the great thing about this though, is you can kind of customize weapons to really match your playstyle. For example, if I go here, you can see that I can get some arcane scaling and I can get Poisonous Mist. So doing that, I'm going to have access to both poison buildup and blood buildup. Because this already has blood loss buildup at 50, that's going to drop to 45, and I'm going to get some poison buildup to 66. Other things, it's still going to keep the blood loss buildup, but you could effectively have like blood loss and frostbite, or blood loss and poison. So really cool that you can kind of mix and match and do this. And later on, as we get more and more wet blades, we'll have more options available. So I could do this, but I'd be able to make it standard, poison, you know, heavy, keen, quality, a bunch of different things. For stat scaling in particular, we have a couple tiers. The highest is S rated, and then after there it goes A, B, C, D, E. If it's at E, you're getting basically nothing out of it, and a lot of weapons you find are going to have very low attribute scaling early on. You're not going to really see those big values until you level it up, and I think a really good example of this is right here, the Meteorite Staff. This thing you can't level up, but it starts with int scaling at S. So a lot of people see this and they go, oh man, S scaling, you know, this outclasses every other staff. The other staffs I'm seeing are only at like D or C. And that's because those staffs can level up. So when you level up other staffs, you'll probably also see, you'll see much higher damage out of it. Now while we're talking about stats, let's briefly look at something. What I want to point out here, this is for my caster folks out there, and that is the scaling here. Now there's going to be sorcery scaling or incant scaling. That value is going to determine how strong your spells are. When it comes to your spells in particular, the damage formula, actually it takes a look at what basically all the damage you're going to do is calculated off of the catalyst you're using, whether that's a staff or an enchantment seal. And that catalyst is going to have its things determined based on what the scaling of it is. So if this is S scaling, it's going to look at your intelligence and use that to determine the sorcery scaling, and then that number is what's going to determine how hard your spells hit. But because of that, right now in my strength build, I don't have 18 faith. So because I don't have 18 faith, the sorcery scaling is 60, which is really low. So keep that in mind anytime you're looking at a new weapon and considering mixing things up. If you don't meet the stat requirements for the weapon, you're not going to be able to see the true damage. Now, the one alternative to this is when it comes to two-handing. So let me see if I have anything that I do meet the strength if I two-hand. So this, I don't have the 16 strength to two-hand that right now. And I can't, if I go to C, you can see right-handed armament power 81. If I'm two-handing my mace, and then I go and I look, because my character is actively in two-handing, I can actually see a true damage. So I'd be able to do 163 with this if I was two-handing it, or 178 with my Sacred Morningstar. If that thing was also sacred, it'd be more of an apples-to-apples comparison, but that is how it all runs down. So at this point, we have a lot to do. We're going to be taking a loop and basically just hitting everything that we can in all of Limgrave, but that's going to be the next episode. So before we really get started on Limgrave, at this point we've kind of gone through the basics of combat and your move animations. We've tackled a basic camp, we've gotten you your wet blade, and what I want you to do now is pick a starter weapon and try out the movesets. Try out a moveset, see what you like with, figure out what's going to feel good, and once you know what weapon you want to get, we're going to head on back to the round table and we're going to upgrade it with as much as we have available. So if you're following the quality build, you should be able to get it up to +3. If you're doing a regular weapon, just doing these will be able to get it up to +4 for now. So pick your weapon, use the little ball method to get enough souls to make sure you can upgrade it, and then from the next episode we're going to start right here and we're going to take a big old loop around Limgrave and hit a ton of stuff.